Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we are immersing ourselves in the definitive work of a filmmaker who didn't just tell stories. He really forged weapons against oppression. We are talking about the Japanese master, Masaki Kobayashi. His entire career, was this uncompromising act of defiance. Just pure defiance against the systems that destroy individual dignity.
That's absolutely the perfect frame for him.
Yeah.
If you want cinema that holds this painful, really clear mirror up to power, Kobayashi is your guy. Look no further.
Right.
He used his camera to just expose the gears, The gears of institutional oppression. Didn't matter if it was modern militarism like in World War II or the ancient cruelty of feudal codes.
He seems to have seen the same patterns everywhere.
Exactly. He
Right.
fundamentally believes cinema had a moral obligation. His films, when you really break them down, they're essentially detailed manuals for resistance. That's
Right.
what they feel like.
Okay, let's unpack this. It's an enormous body of work. Our source material, it gives us deep insight into his life and major works, focusing on how he kept that moral clarity going throughout his whole career. And to really get the source of that conviction, we absolutely have to start with one crucial biographical detail, don't we? His experience as a young man conscripted into the Imperial Japanese Army.
Oh, absolutely. That experience, look, it didn't just influence his work, it defined his whole mission, really. Born in 1916, Kobayashi was already, steeped in humanist thought.
Okay.
He studied philosophy and art history at Waseda University. So he's developing this strong anti-militarist stance right as Japan is plunging deeper and deeper into fascism in the 1930s.
So he's an intellectual watching it all happen.
Well, watching his world descend into madness, he saw it coming.
So when he gets conscripted in 1942, he's already fundamentally opposed to everything the IGA stood for.
Yeah.
And the sources stress this highly unusual choice he made. He refused promotion.
Repeatedly.
Repeatedly, yeah.
It was nearly unheard of. Think about it. A rigid hierarchy built entirely on obedience, advancement, maintaining this whole facade of honor.
Right.
And his refusal of promotion. It was this deliberate, quiet rejection of the machine from the inside.
Yeah.
He was refusing to participate in the mechanism of command itself. He was saying no to the power structure before he ever even picked up a camera to film it.
So that resistance started way back then.
Yeah.
He was sent to Manchuria, spent a year as a POW, and that experience, it seems, just cemented everything for him.
Oh, it permanently marked him. Definitely. As a prisoner, he saw firsthand how institutions, and he stressed any institution, whether it was Japanese militarism or, the system run by his captors, how they systematically work to dehumanize people.
Doesn't matter whose system it is.
Nope. He witnessed how these codes of honor are always used as tools of oppression against the weak. So when he returned, just emotionally devastated, he knew precisely what had gone wrong with Japan.
And he made it his mission.
He dedicated his life, really, to forcing audiences to witness it, too. No escape.
And he started by preparing one of the most, staggering cinematic undertakings in history. The 9.5-hour beast that is the Human Condition trilogy, released between 59 and 61.
The ambition there is just breathtaking. It's based on Junpei Gomikawa's massive 6-volume novel. It runs 6 parts, so 3 films, but each split into 2 distinct chapters.
Right.
It is this sustained, unyielding argument about morality during wartime. To take 9.5 hours to make one cohesive point about moral integrity when you're facing absolute power, it's truly astonishing. Nobody does that.
And the protagonist who has to carry all this weight is Kaji.
Yeah.
Played by the incredible Tatsuya Nakadai. Kaji is an idealist, he's a pacifist, a socialist. His entire mission across this whole epic trilogy is just trying to maintain his essential humanity, his moral principles, while he's trapped inside the machinery of World War II.
But the central theme, and it's established right in the first few minutes, is that this mission, it's essentially impossible. That's the core argument. Impossible within the structure of an oppressive militaristic system.
Okay, let's break it down. Part 1, No Greater Love, 1959. What's fascinating is Kaji doesn't even start as a soldier here.
No, not at all.
He's in Japanese-occupied Manchuria, 1943. He's a labor supervisor. And he has this idealistic goal.
Yeah.
He actually thinks he can implement humane labor practices for the Chinese workers in this mine and factory complex.
It's the ultimate dangerous compromise, isn't it? Kaji, this revolutionary idealist, has chosen to work within an utterly corrupt, murderous structure.
Yeah.
He secures this position, which ensures, relative comfort for himself and his new wife, Michiko. But the sources make it crystal clear. He is already complicit just by taking the job.
He thinks his good intentions can make a difference.
Right. He believes his good intentions can mitigate the evil, But the institution,
Sure.
it just doesn't allow mitigation. It's not built for that.
And Kobayashi uses his visual language immediately to drive this point home. This is where the technical stuff really starts communicating the themes, you see.
Oh, yeah.
The film's shot in grand scope, an early widescreen format, makes the compositions feel vast, consuming.
Exactly. When you watch it, you see the critique of power. Kobayashi uses these huge geometric shots, the mine, the factory floor, the worker barracks,
Yeah.
and the workers. They look like ants, totally dwarfed by the scale of the operation. This is widescreen used not for, like, spectacle, but for subjugation. It crushes them.
And Kaji himself, where is he framed in all this?
He's always framed slightly apart, always uncomfortable, especially when he's among the rigid military officials. The clean, straight lines of the Japanese administration buildings, the vastness of the whole enterprise, it visually traps him.
So the composition is telling the story.
It tells us he doesn't belong morally, but he is structurally confined by the geometry of the system he willingly entered.
And his idealistic reforms, predictably, they're doomed from the start. He tries to protect the laborers from corruption, from brutality, but he's instantly opposed by the existing supervisors and, crucially, by the military police, the Kempeitai.
And when he tries to protect a worker, what happens? He's branded a communist sympathizer. His attempts lead only to total failure. Worse than failure, actually, they lead to the execution of the very workers he was trying to save.
Oh, God.
The crucial, brutal insight here is that Kaji's relative comfort with Michiko. It's meaningless, it's built on sand, against the reality of occupation and exploitation. He sort of sold his soul for this illusion of control, and all it brought was more death.
So this first part, which is already incredibly long and harrowing, it ends logically. The system just absorbs him completely. His compromise failed. He gets inscripted into the army.
Which throws him straight into part 2, The Road to Eternity, also 1959. And this is where Kobayashi's own time in the IJA becomes raw. It feels almost like documentary material at times.
Right.
This section is essentially this visceral depiction of a military training camp. And it's shown as a mechanism designed not really to train soldiers, but to systematically break individual will. That's its purpose.
It's systematic dehumanization, isn't it? More than, say, spectacular violence. Kobayashi, being the intellectual he was, seems more concerned with the mental toll, the mindless obedience, the hazing, the constant arbitrary abuse.
Precisely. And Kaji, the intellectual pacifist, is thrown into this environment. His moral opposition just refuses to let him stay quiet, even though he probably should.
He tries to uphold basic decency. He attempts to protect a recaptured deserter.
Which, of course, results in his own severe punishment. Beatings, total humiliation. The system simply doesn't tolerate empathy. It treats compassion as if it's mutiny. Simple kindness is rebellion.
And the sources really emphasize this critical point of no return for Kaji's principles, that devastating scene where he's forced to slap another soldier.
Yeah. Nakadai's performance in that moment, it's the definition of internalized devastation. You see it all in his eyes.
He becomes part of it.
Kaji realizes he is literally being forced to participate in the mechanism of oppression. He's becoming the abuser, becoming what he hated. His own principles are just systematically destroyed by an institution that demands complicity, even when the violence is petty and meaningless. He's mentally destroyed before he even sees combat.
And the section ends with him physically, mentally broken, but still somehow clinging to this idea of returning to Michiko. He's sent to the true front lines, the ultimate test is coming, and you just know he has nothing left to give the machine.
Which leads us right into part 3, A Soldier's Prayer from 1961. This is the longest and by far the darkest installment. It's a descent into absolute chaos, ultimate collapse. The Soviet army advances into Manchuria, Japanese forces just disintegrate.
And the sources are really clear that the combat here is utterly unheroic. It's not a spectacle.
Not at all.
It's shown as just confusion, terror, and waste. And here, Kaji commits the ultimate betrayal of his pacifist self. He kills someone.
This is the final moral fall. There's nowhere left to go. He's been stripped of his identity, his dignity, and now his foundational principle gone.
And then comes the crushing historical irony.
Oh, yeah. Kaji, the socialist, the guy who sympathized with communist ideals, he gets captured by the Soviets.
And what's the devastating realization they provide him?
That ideology means nothing. Power is power, and it always corrupts.
Yeah.
Simple as that. The Soviets treat the Japanese prisoners with the exact same brutality the Japanese showed the Chinese workers back in part 1.
Wow.
Kaji realizes the entire moral argument he spent 9 hours fighting, suffering for. It's been rendered completely null. The systems are interchangeable. His suffering under the Soviet system is no different than the suffering he tried to prevent under the Japanese one. It's all the same machine.
That profound disillusionment, that's really the core of the film's message about institutional failure, isn't it?
Absolutely. And the final sequence, it's just an agonizing, legendary depiction of bleakness. Kaji escapes the Soviet camp, tries desperately to find his way back to Michiko. It becomes this relentless nightmare journey through a frozen winter landscape. It feels like an echo of Napoleon's retreat from Moscow, cinematically.
He's starving, frostbitten, hallucinating.
Yeah.
Driven purely by the ghost of his love for Michiko.
And he collapses, dies in the snow, mere miles from home. The sheer physical cost of his moral struggle is shown to be completely meaningless, witnessed by absolutely no one. The ending just emphasizes the total, comprehensive waste of his suffering.
So when we try to synthesize this mammoth argument, 9.5 hours of just uncompromising filmmaking, Kobayashi basically lays bare this incredibly uncomfortable truth. The system is designed to destroy you. You cannot work within it, you can't negotiate with it, and you certainly can't remain human inside it.
The paradox, though, is that while Kaji is physically annihilated, destroyed, his story is now permanently documented. The film itself is the act of resistance. It forces the audience, us, to confront the reality that these systems force impossible moral choices. And the cost of maintaining your decency is often, well, your life.
So after tackling that epic scale of modern war, the trauma of a global conflict, Kobayashi shifts gears completely, dramatically. In 1962, with Hara-Kiri or seppuku,
Total change of pace.
it's a total change. A true precision strike, from 9.5 hours of sprawl down to a 133-minute, tightly controlled chamber piece.
And the contrast feels utterly deliberate. After showing us how the modern military system annihilates Kaji, Kobayashi turns his focus, his lens, to proving the exact same destructive mechanisms existed centuries earlier.
Right.
He uses feudalism and the, romanticized code of the samurai as his laboratory this time. And the film is formally perfect. It takes place almost entirely within the rigid geometry of the E-Clan courtyard. It's a complete surgical deconstruction of the whole concept of honor.
The setup is deceptively simple. Hanshiro Tsugumo, this dignified, aging ronin, arrives and requests permission to commit ritual suicide, seppuku, on the E-Clan's property. But the clan counselor, he suspects a con. Apparently, this was a common trick for desperate, starving ronin trying to get some cash. So he tells Tsugumo this cautionary tale about another desperate man who came before him.
And this nested narrative, the story within the story, that's the mechanism Kobayashi uses to expose the cold, institutional hypocrisy of Bushido.
Yeah.
That previous Ronin, that was Motomi Chijiwa, turns out he's Hanshiro's son-in-law.
Ah, the connection.
And Motomi wasn't doing this for honor at all. He was desperate for money. His wife, Hanshiro's daughter, and their child were dying. He tried the con, hoping the clan would just pay him to go away quietly.
But the E-Clan refused. They wanted to discourage this trend, uphold their facade of honor. They demanded he follow through with the ritual. And here is the unforgettable, shocking detail from the sources.
Yeah.
Motomi was so utterly poor he had sold his steel blade. He'd replaced it with a dull, worthless bamboo blade.
The true horror of the system is revealed right there. They knew the blade was useless bamboo, but they forced him to commit the act anyway. The scene is filmed with just unflinching cruelty.
You can barely watch it.
Showing this young man suffering for hours, unable to properly cut himself, while the righteous samurai council just watches him bleed slowly, judging him.
That single detail, the bamboo blade, it's horrifying. It just instantly annihilates centuries of romanticizing the samurai code. The conclusion Kobayashi forces on us is absolute. Honor without compassion is sadism.
Yeah.
And the entire Bushido code, it's just a tool for powerful men to maintain dominance. The tradition is hollow, it's cold, and it's deadly.
And visually, again, the formal rigor reinforces this moral critique. It's shot in stark black and white by cinematographer Yoshio Miyajima. Just look at the architecture of that clan house.
Little lines.
The rigid geometry, the clean lines, the empty spaces, it all emphasizes confinement. The observers sit in these static, symmetrical lines, forcing us, the audience, to witness the institutional cruelty. While Motomi suffers in the middle, trapped by the very architectural layout of their tradition.
Then comes the twist. Hanshiro reveals he is Motomi's father-in-law. He's there specifically for revenge. He defeats the clan's champions, exposes their corruption, their hypocrisy, but his family is already dead.
He wins the physical battles, yeah, against the clan's best swordsman. But the system wins the war, hell. by protecting itself. The clan counselor simply falsifies the official record, reports that Hanshiro committed suicide honorably,
Covering it all up.
burying the messy, uncomfortable truth of the bamboo blade and the clan's humiliating defeat. Gone.
So the ultimate power of the system isn't just forcing obedience. It's the ability to instantly rewrite history, to maintain the facade of honor at all costs, even over reality itself.
Exactly, controls the narrative.
Okay, so after these two profoundly realistic, historically grounded films, one on modern war, one on ancient feudalism, Kobayashi takes this remarkable stylistic detour in 1964 with Kwaidan, a 3-hour supernatural anthology. The question is obvious. Why? Why did the fierce institutional critic, the social realist, suddenly dive into the world of ghosts?
That's the paradox that makes this film so brilliant, I think. But the key is to realize it's not really about ghosts in the conventional sense. The supernatural element is a mechanism. It's a way to discuss the past that won't stay buried.
Oh, yeah.
It's about guilt, obligation, historical suffering. These aren't just spooky spirits.
So he's using ghosts as a metaphor for history's unfinished business. These are the ghosts of war, of feudalism, the lingering traumas that demand accountability from the present generation. Makes sense.
And visually, it's a seismic shift from the stark geometry of Hara-Kiri. It is shot in vivid Eastman color, uses highly artificial sets, painted skies, stylized landscapes. It feels theatrical, heightened, non-naturalistic, like a dreamlike, almost terrifying reality that emphasizes the metaphorical nature of the stories.
And each story has its own look.
Yeah, each story has its own visual logic, its own distinct color palette. Very deliberate.
Let's talk about some of these powerful segments. They really stick with you. Listener nuggets, perhaps.
Okay, well, we absolutely have to start with the black hair. It's haunting. A samurai abandons his devoted first wife to marry a wealthy woman. Classic story. But then he realizes the error of his ways, returns years later.
And she's waiting.
His first wife seems to be waiting, still devoted, but when he wakes up next to her, she crumbles into dust, leaving only her black hair, which wraps around him like this relentless, inescapable curse.
Wow.
It's a perfect allegory for the inescapable guilt of betrayal, isn't it? And the price of abandoning personal commitment for, material ambition.
And then the most famous segment, probably, Hoichi the Earless.
Yeah.
About the blind biwa player whose music is so beautiful it attracts the ghosts of the hiking clan.
Right, the clan defeated in this massive civil war centuries earlier. The ghosts are the weight of historical violence. The priest tries to protect Hoichi from these spirits by covering his entire body in protective sutras, but
He misses a spot.
tragically forgets to cover his ears, so the spirits, they take the only part of him that wasn't protected by the spiritual text, his ears.
It's an incredible image. A metaphor for, the small piece of you, the part that listens to the music of the past that history always manages to reclaim somehow.
I think so. Even in this fantasy setting, the critique remains. Violence and historical trauma leave permanent scars. We should also briefly mention Woman of the Snow uses those dominant whites and blues to create this exquisite, terrifying cold that mirrors the internal emotional coldness of that story. It's visually stunning.
The film was a huge success, critically anyway.
Oh yeah, a triumph. Proved Kobayashi's mastery of style wasn't limited. It won the jury prize at Cannes in 1965. That's his second consecutive win there, after Hara-Kiri. And it got an Oscar nomination for Best Foreign Language Film.
So he could deliver his moral critique in any genre? Documentary realist war epic? Or high art horror? Didn't matter.
Exactly.
And just 3 years later, 1967, he returns to the world of the samurai with Samurai Rebellion, or Joyuchi. And this one feels like a necessary companion piece to Hara-Kiri.
It really does.
While Hara-Kiri was about the emptiness of the honor code itself, this film centers on the profound power of, love versus duty.
Yeah, it's another precise dissection of feudal power, but it focuses on the domestic tragedy within that system. The aging samurai, Isaburo Sasahara, played this time by the legendary Toshiro Mifune, is forced by his clan lord to accept Ichi.
Right, the Lord's cast-off mistress.
Yeah, who's pregnant with the lord's child, no less. She's forced upon Isaburo's son, Yoguro, as a wife. The marriage is purely a cynical act by the lord, an easy way to dispose of an inconvenient woman.
But here's the dangerous complication. The thing the rigid system couldn't possibly account for.
Human connection.
Yogoro and Ichi genuinely fall in love. They find real happiness. They have a daughter, Tomi.
And their chosen happiness, their genuine love, becomes a direct existential threat to the hierarchy because it's not sanctioned, it's not controlled. So, years later, the Lord's new official wife fails to produce a male heir.
So he wants Ichi back.
He demands Ichi back, and the daughter she produced. This is where Isaburo, the dignified, quiet, restrained samurai, finally draws his ultimate line in the sand.
He refuses the order, refuses to force the divorce and return her, and his refusal isn't based on some lofty political ideology.
No, not at all.
It's based purely on basic human decency, on love for his son, for his daughter-in-law, for his granddaughter. He just says no to the institution because the command is unjust, tyrannical, and fundamentally inhumane.
And critically, the system cannot allow this. The source material notes that rebellion, even if it's just the rebellion of one family protecting its emotional core, its love, it has to be crushed immediately to maintain the illusion of total obedience for everyone else.
So they send warriors.
They send warriors to retrieve Ichi and essentially kill the family if they resist.
The battles escalate, but the real tragedy happens inside the house first, doesn't it? Ichi.
Yeah, Ichi, trying desperately to remove herself as the cause of the conflict, she takes poison. She sacrifices herself, hoping her death will satisfy the Lord and save her husband and father-in-law.
But it doesn't stop it.
No. The rebellion continues. It's no longer about her physical presence. It's about the principle, the fact that the command was unjust and that the system tried to violate basic humanity. So Isaburo, the old man, fights with this incredible desperation, kills multiple samurai in these brutal kinetic sequences, but ultimately he dies too.
He loses physically. Again, like Kaji, like Hanshiro in a way. But the analysis of this ending is clear. Isaburo wins morally even as he loses physically.
Exactly. The resistance itself matters. The act of saying no when everyone expects you, demands you to say yes.
Right.
It carries this profound, lasting weight, even in death.
And we absolutely have to spend a moment on Mifune's performance here. We know him from Kurosawa's films, loud, kinetic, dynamic roles like Sanjuro or Kikuchiyo in Seven Samurai.
Right, almost animalistic sometimes.
Yeah. But here, Mifune is so internal, so dignified, weighted with sadness. You can see he knows the destruction he's choosing. He knows this path leads to death. But he goes through with it because the alternative, submitting to tyrannical obedience, sacrificing love, is unbearable. He's this quiet force of dignity, choosing principled destruction over compliant survival. It's incredible.
It's a masterful performance, showing a different side of him completely.
Okay, let's zoom out now. Let's try to synthesize what defines this uncompromising cinematic signature of Kobayashi. If you see one of his films, what are the characteristics, the tells, that let you know the system is about to get systematically critiqued?
Okay, well, first, I'd say there is moral clarity. Kobayashi is just not interested in ambiguity for ambiguity's sake. His stance is clear. Institutions are generally wrong. Individuals resisting them are generally right. The complexity comes from the impossible situations the system creates, not from some kind of moral uncertainty about who's right and wrong.
Okay, clear lines drawn. Second?
Yeah. Second, that formal rigor we've talked about, the geometry. His compositions are often symmetrical, relying heavily on the architecture, the lines of barracks, the structure of samurai houses to emphasize confinement and power dynamics. Space equals power in his films, and the frame itself often feels like a trap.
Third, you mentioned the long take.
Yes. He holds shots much longer than what might feel comfortable for the audience. And this isn't just, stylistic showing off. It forces the viewer to become an active witness. He needs you to sit there and observe the cruelty, the humiliation, the suffering, without the easy escape of a quick cut. It creates this powerful sense of documentary realism, even in stylized films.
Fourth, scope. He wasn't afraid to go big.
Not at all. Whether it's the 9.5 hours of The Human Condition or the 3 hours of Kwaidan, he thought big. He clearly wanted to say everything he had to say about a subject, and he took the time necessary. He forced the audience to grapple with the entire breadth of the tragedy, not just a snapshot.
Fifth, his specific use of widescreen. Grand scope, duoscope.
Right. These specific, wider-than-standard aspect ratios, he used them to emphasize two key things, usually. Either the intense isolation of a single figure completely dwarfed by empty space around them.
Like Kaji?
Like Kaji, often. Or, conversely, the rigid group hierarchies, where every character is locked into their precise place by the oppressive width of the frame. You see the structure visually represented.
And finally, his approach to violence.
Crucial point. It is never stylized, never glorified, never ever entertaining. It is always ugly, sad, and fundamentally about the strong hurting the weak. When Kaji is beaten, you feel every blow because the camera just doesn't cut away. When Motome attempts seppuku with that bamboo blade, It's not spectacle. It's portrayed as waste and institutional sadism. You feel the horror, not excitement.
And we can't overlook his key collaborations.
No, absolutely not. The significance of his long-standing partnership with Katsuya Nakadai is immense. Nakadai provided that incredibly internalized emotion, that moral struggle shown through restraint that we discussed with Kaji and Hanshiro.
He could convey so much with so little.
Exactly. And cinematographer Yoshio Miyajima was absolutely essential for establishing that formal rigor, that geometric precision we keep mentioning, whether it was in stark black and white or that vibrant artificial color in Kwaidan.
And his career really bookends his central question perfectly, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
After decades of exposing institutional failure through fiction, through metaphor, his final major film, The Tokyo Trial, in 1983, was a documentary.
Yeah, a documentary about the actual war crimes tribunal, a direct return to the historical reckoning, the question of justice and institutional responsibility that defined his entire career and his personal philosophy. It brings it all home.
What's fascinating about his legacy, too, is how global and how modern his influence feels. He really pioneered the elevated samurai film as social critique, didn't he? Stripping away all the romance to reveal the brutality underneath the coat.
Completely. And you can trace his impact directly to modern cinema that explores toxic systems and oppression. I mean, think about directors like Paul Thomas Anderson.
Oh, yeah.
Exploring institutional toxicity, power struggles in films like The Master or There Will Be Blood. Or consider the moral fury and the deliberate, sometimes rigid compositional choices of a director like Spike Lee. There's a lineage there.
In Asia.
Oh, absolutely, in modern Asian cinema. Particularly, you see it in the Korean New Wave directors like Park Chan-wook or Bong Joon-ho. They consistently trap their characters in these oppressive social and architectural structures. Just look at Parasite or Snowpiercer.
Visual cages?
Exactly. Those are the kind of structures Kobayashi was defining half a century earlier. They are directly working in the tradition he established, using cinematic space to critique systemic inequality. It's unmistakable.
And this leads us to what is maybe the most impressive point about his legacy. He proved that serious cinema can actually be successful cinema.
Which is amazing, right? The Human Condition, all 9.5 hours, was a box office success in Japan. Hara-Kiri played worldwide and won awards.
These were lengthy, difficult, morally complex films that absolutely refused to soften their message for broader appeal. And it proved that audiences will engage with depth, with seriousness, as long as the filmmaking is skilled and passionate enough. You don't always have to compromise.
So we've kind of come full circle here. What does this all mean for us today? Are Kobayashi's films just, historical documents about a closed feudal system or wartime Japan?
I think the sources argue strongly against that. They're described as more relevant than ever. They speak directly to anyone today who feels trapped by corporate systems, by governmental systems. Anyone who feels complicit in institutional wrong, maybe, or who's constantly told to respect traditions or hierarchies that are actively being used to harm people.
Yeah, that resonates. Kobayashi's core belief, and you see it reiterated across his entire filmography, was that cinema has a moral responsibility. It has to tell the truth about power. Every single one of his major works asks that fundamental question. How do we resist?
And his answer seems pretty consistent, even if it's bleak. We resist by saying no, even when it seems futile. We resist by loving what the system tells us not to love, like in Samurai Rebellion.
We resist by refusing to participate in our own dehumanization. And maybe most importantly for him as a filmmaker, we resist by bearing witness.
That's why those bleak endings are so potent, isn't it? Kaji dies in the snow, alone. Hanshiro's revenge is completely covered up by the official record. Izaburo dies fighting a battle he can't win. The system always seems to win, physically.
Always. But the act of creating the film itself, of forcing the world to acknowledge the individual struggle, the moral truth behind the facade, that is the ultimate resistance for Kobayashi. The record exists.
Which raises a really important question for you, the listener, to maybe carry away with you. Kobayashi's form of resistance was about creating this permanent cinematic record that the system couldn't easily destroy, even if it could rewrite official documents back then. But in our modern world, where information, images, videos are constantly available seemingly everywhere, and yet institutions still try to bury the truth behind firewalls, misinformation, spin.
Yeah.
How does the massive availability of film and digital records today change the nature of that resistance?
Yeah, that's the question. Does the ability to instantly bear witness online, to share globally in seconds, does that make the act of saying no any less physically or personally costly? Or does it just change the battlefield? That's the challenge Kobayashi's work presents to our digital age, I think.
A profound thought on which to end. Thank you for diving deep into the uncompromising world of Masaki Kobayashi with us today.
Yeah, thank you. We'll catch you next time for the next deep dive.